Have you ever been so tired of drama that you moved to another continent? Not another city, not another state, a whole continent. Nadine Dominic did. And the universe looked at her and said, "That's adorable." 31 years old, recently divorced, single mother, 2 children, one emotional support wig, and exactly $247.38 left in her bank account. The 38 cents were important. Don't disrespect the 38 cents. Those cents had plans. Now let's talk about the divorce. See, Nadine's ex-husband didn't just leave. No, this man left her for a yoga instructor named Crystal. Crystal, a woman whose entire personality was green smoothies and saying things like, Mercury is making people toxic. Girl, no, Kevin was toxic. Mercury was innocent. But Nadine wasn't bitter. Okay, that's a lie. She was bitter enough to season an entire Thanksgiving turkey, which is why she accepted a teaching position in South Korea. Fresh start, new country, new opportunities, no drama. Again, the universe laughed. The plane landed in Seoul. Adrian immediately pressed his face against the airport window. "Mom, everything looks like a K-drama." Anaya grabbed Nadine's hand. "Will I meet a princess?" "No, baby." "Will I meet a dragon?" "Probably not." The child nodded. Okay, like dragons were still on the table. Children are terrifying. 3 hours later, they arrived at their new apartment complex, and that's when Nadine first saw him. Shin Min Week. Y'all, this man wasn't walking, this man was entering. Tall, black suit, sharp jawline, expression colder than student loan debt, the kind of face that looked like smiling cost extra. 2 men stood behind him, not beside him, behind him. That's how you know somebody is either rich or dangerous, possibly both. Nadine stared, Anaya stared, Adrian stared. A nearby businessman bowed so hard Nadine thought he dropped something. Min Week didn't react. The man acknowledged people the way billionaires acknowledge taxes, reluctantly. Nadine leaned toward her kids. "Who's that?" Adrian whispered. "Batman." "That's not Batman." "Mom, look at him." Okay, fair point. The man did look like Batman if Batman paid taxes and carried generational trauma. Then Min Week's eyes landed on them. Nadine smiled politely. Min Week nodded once. One nod, a government-issued nod, nothing more. Then he walked away, and Nadine thought, well, I'm never seeing that man again. Ladies and gentlemen, she was wrong, so very wrong, because 1 hour later, she was sitting inside a government office wondering why everyone suddenly looked stressed. A woman behind the desk kept typing, then frowning, then typing again, then frowning harder. The woman looked up. "That is problem." Nadine's soul immediately left her body. Immigration officers never start good news with "there is problem." The woman clicked her tongue. "Apartment registration issue." "What kind of issue?" The woman sighed. "Complicated issue." Those are dangerous words, very dangerous. Nothing good has ever followed the phrase complicated issue. The woman continued typing. Nadine sat there with her 2 children, 2 suitcases, 2 functioning brain cells, and rising blood pressure. Welcome to Korea. The disaster had officially begun. Now, when normal people hear, "we made a paperwork mistake," they think wrong address, misspelled name, maybe a missing signature. What they do not think is accidental marriage. But that's because normal people don't live inside chaos. Nadine did. The government employee stared at her screen, then stared at Nadine, then smiled. And y'all, that smile scared me, because it was the smile of somebody who thought they solved the problem. They had not solved the problem. The woman clasped her hands together. "Congratulations." "For what?" The woman smiled wider. "Your husband." Silence. Nadine stared. The woman stared. The children stared. The air itself stared. "My what?" The woman turned her monitor, and there he was, Shin Min Wook, listed under spouse information. How does someone even make this kind of mistake? Nadine felt her soul perform a backflip. "No." The woman nodded. "Yes." "No." "Yes." "No." The woman frowned. "You don't like him?" That was not the issue. Meanwhile, across town, Shin Min Wook was sitting in a boardroom. 30 men, absolute silence, an atmosphere so tense oxygen needed permission to enter. Then his assistant rushed in, pale, sweating, concerned. "Sir, there has been a situation." Min Wook looked up. He hated situations. Situations required effort. Effort required patience. Patience was in limited supply. "What situation?" The assistant swallowed. "You have a wife." Silence. The room froze. A grown man dropped a pen. Min Wook blinked once, slowly. "What?" The assistant looked ready to cry. "You have a wife." Min Wook stared. The assistant stared. The room collectively prayed because their boss looked one inconvenience away from becoming a documentary. Back at the government office, Nadine was trying to explain. This is a mistake. The woman nodded. Yes. Then fix it. The woman nodded again. 3 months. Nadine froze. What? 3 months. Apparently the correction process would take 90 days. 90 days. Nadine had never wanted to fight bureaucracy before. Today was different. Then the woman smiled. Until them legally married. Nadine almost fainted. Anaya looked excited. Mommy got married? No. Adrian looked at the screen, then at Min Wook's picture, then back at Nadine. Wait. Nadine knew that face. That was a dangerous face. That was an idea face. Children should not have ideas. Ideas become problems. Mom. No. You married Batman. I did not. The child had already stopped listening. It was already too late. Children don't care about facts. Facts are suggestions. Feelings are law. And Anaya felt like she had a new dad. Therefore, she had a new dad. Case closed. The next morning, Min Wook standing in the apartment courtyard. The man was reviewing documents with 2 bodyguards. Business, important business, serious business. Then, a tiny voice. Hi, Daddy. The bodyguards froze. Min Wook froze. The documents froze. Time itself froze. Anaya smiled. Good morning. Min Wook looked around. Maybe another father existed nearby. Nope, just him. The child pointed directly at him. Daddy! One bodyguard started coughing. The other turned around because he was about to laugh and valued his employment. Min Wook crouched slightly. I am not your father. Anaya nodded. Okay, Daddy, and ran away. Conversation over. The child had spoken. Can we talk about Anaya for a second? Because this child met a Korean mafia boss, looked at him once and said, yep, that's my father now. No background check, no DNA test, no discussion, just confidence. The kind of confidence I wish I had. Meanwhile, Adrian was somehow worse because Adrian had developed a theory, a dangerous theory. The theory? His new Korean father was secretly Batman. The evidence? Bodyguards, fancy cars, expensive suits, people afraid of him, mysterious phone calls. Honestly, the case was stronger than it should have been. 3 days later, Nadine found Adrian explaining everything to another child. My dad protects the city. No, he doesn't. He does. What's his job? Adrian paused. Good question. Then his eyes lit up. Confidential. The other kid immediately believed him. Children are idiots, beautiful idiots, but still idiots. Meanwhile, Nadine was becoming suspicious, very suspicious. Everywhere Min Wook went, people bowed, employees became nervous, businessmen became respectful, everybody acted like he was secretly running a country. One evening, she finally cornered his assistant, Mr. Chun, a man who looked permanently stressed, like sleep had personally offended him. What exactly does Mr. Shin do? Mr. Chun blinked. He manages organizations. That was not an answer. What kind of organizations? Various organizations. Now Nadine was even more suspicious. Nobody who manages normal organizations says various organizations. That's criminal language or LinkedIn language, sometimes both. Then came the moment everything got worse. Nadine got lost. Now listen, this apartment complex was huge. Rich people buildings don't have hallways. They have side quests. She took one wrong turn, then another, then another. Suddenly, she opened a door and froze. Inside sat 12 men around a massive table. Black suits, serious faces, absolute silence. At the head sat Shin Min Wook. Everybody turned toward her. Y'all, the way 12 grown men looked at her simultaneously, I would have evaporated. Nadine did not, because Nadine's survival instinct occasionally took vacations. She smiled awkwardly. Oh, silence. I think I took a wrong turn. Nobody moved, nobody blinked, nobody breathed. Then Nadine pointed at Shin Min Wook. Your building is confusing. One mafia lieutenant nearly swallowed his tongue. Nobody, and I mean nobody, talked to Shin Min Wook like that. Min Wook stared at her, long, silent, unreadable. Then he said, third door on the left. Oh, she nodded. Thank you. And left, just left, like she hadn't accidentally interrupted what looked suspiciously like the meeting of people who definitely owned unregistered firearms. The moment the door closed, the room exploded, not physically, emotionally. One lieutenant whispered, Boss. Another whispered, Your wife is terrifying. Min Wook closed his eyes, because explaining this situation would require energy, and energy was expensive, far too expensive. The problem, for the first time in years, he was fighting a smile. Now, let's talk about rumors. Rumors are dangerous, especially when grown men are bored, especially when those grown men are criminals, and especially when those criminals have just witnessed a woman walk into their boss's meeting, roast the building layout, and leave alive. The rumors spread faster than free Wi-Fi. By lunchtime, one lieutenant told another lieutenant, "Boss's wife is fearless." By dinner, the story became, "Boss's wife once punched a shark." By midnight, somebody swore she was secretly former military. Nobody knew which military, just military. The next morning, Nadine was buying coffee. A black luxury car pulled up. 3 suited men stepped out. They bowed. To her. Nadine looked behind her. Nobody. Just her. The men bowed again. "Good morning, madam." "Madam?" Ma'am, she had $37 in her checking account. The only thing she was the madam of was financial anxiety. Morning?" The men nodded respectfully and left. Nadine stood there holding her coffee like it contained answers. It did not. Meanwhile, inside a warehouse, a very nervous lieutenant was updating Min Wook. "Boss, there's a situation." Min Wook looked up. The last 5 situations had all involved Nadine. He was exhausted. "What now?" "Some of the younger members think your wife runs the organization." Silence. The kind of silence that makes people update their wills. Min Wook blinked. Once. Slowly. "They think what?" The lieutenant swallowed. "They say you're the muscle and she's the brains." Min Wook rubbed his temples because prison sounded peaceful. Meanwhile, Nadine's problems were getting worse, specifically because of Adrian. See, Adrian had started school, and Adrian had inherited his mother's confidence, which was unfortunate. The teacher smiled. "Tell us about your family." Easy question, simple question, safe question. Adrian stood proudly. "My mom is a teacher." "Wonderful. And my dad protects the city." The teacher froze. "I'm sorry? My Korean dad." The teacher glanced around nervously. "What exactly does your father do?" Adrian lowered his voice, the way people lower their voice before saying something completely ridiculous. "It's confidential." The entire classroom lost its mind. At pickup time, there were already rumors. Somebody thought Min Wook worked for the government. Somebody thought he was a spy. One child believed he hunted dragons. Honestly, that one was Anaya. Anaya started most of the dragon rumors. Then came the real disaster. That weekend, there was a school family picnic. Nadine planned to attend alone, like a normal parent. Then Anaya asked a question. "Daddy is coming, right?" "No." "Why?" "Because he's not your father." Anaya nodded thoughtfully, then walked away. Nadine smiled. Finally, progress. 30 minutes later, Anaya returned, holding Min Wook's hand. "Never mind, I invited him." The scream Nadine screamed was internal. "Y'all, I need you to understand something. Shin Min Wook had survived gang wars, police investigations, corporate takeovers, hostile negotiations, and a knife fight. A knife fight! But nothing prepared him for elementary school parents. The family picnic was chaos. Children running, parents chatting, teachers smiling, normal people doing normal people things. Then Min Wook arrived. The atmosphere changed immediately. Parents stopped talking, teachers stood straighter, one dad accidentally dropped a hot dog. A woman whispered, "Who is that?" Another whispered, "He looks expensive," which was honestly accurate. Nadine spotted him. Black suit, sunglasses, 2 bodyguards, at a children's picnic. "Sir, what are we doing?" She marched over. "What is this?" Min Wook looked confused. "You said family picnic." "Why are they here?" She pointed at the bodyguards. "They are security." "For what?" Min Wook looked around. Children, juice boxes, face painting, bouncy castles. Honestly, fair question. The bodyguards looked embarrassed. One of them was standing beside a cotton candy machine looking like he regretted every life choice. Then Anaya appeared. "Daddy!" and launched herself at him. The bodyguards almost had heart attacks. Min Wook caught her effortlessly, without thinking, without hesitation, without realizing every parent had just witnessed it. The entire picnic melted. The scary man was carrying a little girl. The little girl was giggling. The scary man looked happy. Nadine noticed it too. That tiny smile, barely there, but real. And for some reason, her stomach did a weird little flip. "Excuse me?" "No, absolutely not. We were not doing that." Then came the 3-legged race. God help us all. Adrian signed them up, without permission, without consent, without fear. "Dad and Mom are participating." Nadine froze. Min Wook froze. The children smiled. The race coordinator smiled. The universe smiled. Everybody except the victims smiled. 5 minutes later, their ankles were tied together. Nadine glared. "This is your fault." "How?" "You exist." "Reasonable." The whistle blew. They immediately fell, flat, directly into the grass. Parents gasped. Children laughed. Nadine laughed so hard she couldn't breathe. And then something happened. Min Wook laughed too. Not a polite laugh, not a small laugh, a real laugh, the kind that escapes before you can stop it, the kind that changes your whole face. Nadine stared, because suddenly the man looked younger, lighter, human, and that scared her more than his scary face ever had. Now, let's discuss attraction, specifically unwanted attraction, the worst kind, because wanted attraction, fun, exciting, romantic. Unwanted attraction, that's a full-time problem. And Nadine had a problem. She noticed it 3 days later. The man remembered things, little things, dangerous things, like her coffee order, her favorite snacks, the fact she hated mushrooms. Nobody should remember that many details. That was suspicious behavior. One morning, she entered a cafe. The cashier smiled. "Your usual has already been paid for." Nadine blinked. "What?" The cashier pointed. Outside sat Min Wook, reading documents, looking annoyingly handsome, like he had personally offended her. She marched over. "You bought my coffee." He looked up. "You forgot your wallet." "How did you know I was here?" "You come here every Tuesday." Pause. "Wait, what? How did he know that?" Nadine's heart immediately started acting unemployed. Across town, Min Wook had his own crisis, because somehow the loud American woman had become the first thing he thought about in the morning, and that was unacceptable, very unacceptable. His lieutenant was giving a report. Min Wook wasn't listening. "Boss?" Nothing. "Boss?" Still nothing. "Boss?" Min Wook looked up. "What?" The lieutenant sighed. "You smiled." Silence. The room froze, because that was true. He had, and everyone saw it. The poor lieutenant immediately regretted being observant. Meanwhile, Anaya and Adrian had become investigators. The children had noticed things, dangerous things, looks, smiles, conversations. The fact both adults suddenly became weird around each other. Anaya sat on her bed, serious, focused, planning. Adrian sat beside her, equally serious, like two tiny criminals preparing a heist. "We need a plan." Adrian nodded. Operation Mom and Dad. The alliance was formed. Humanity was doomed. That evening, the children executed Phase 1, a family movie night, without informing anyone. Nadine entered the living room, found snacks, blankets, popcorn, and exactly one couch. One. Anaya smiled. "Movie night." Nadine narrowed her eyes. "Why is there only one couch?" "The couches are tired." "The couches are what?" "Tired. Children will lie directly to your face without blinking." Across the room, Min Wook arrived. He looked at the setup, then looked at the children, then looked at Nadine. Everyone understood exactly what was happening. Nobody had the energy to fight it. 2 hours later, they were sitting together, shoulders touching occasionally, watching a movie neither of them could focus on. The kids were pretending to sleep. Pretending. Terribly. Adrian snored 3 different ways. Anaya peeked every 4 minutes. Neither child was subtle. Halfway through the movie, Nadine laughed, a real laugh, the kind that made her lean slightly into him without noticing. Neither moved, neither spoke, neither looked away. Something shifted, something quiet, something dangerous, and for the first time, neither of them wanted the movie to end. From beneath the blanket, Anaya gave Adrian a tiny thumbs up. Phase 1 was a complete success. Now, listen, before we continue, I need everybody to hit subscribe because things are getting dangerous. And by dangerous, I mean these two idiots are starting to develop feelings. Nadine is pretending she doesn't notice him. Min Wook is pretending he doesn't notice her. The children have started a full-scale matchmaking operation. Mr. Chen is one inconvenience away from early retirement, and I personally refuse to suffer through all this romantic tension alone. Y'all better subscribe because these people are about to make terrible decisions. I wish I was kidding. Okay, back to it. Most children play with toys. Most children watch cartoons. Most children mind their business. Anaya and Adrian? These little criminals chose manipulation. Because once they decided Nadine and Min Wook belonged together, they became absolutely relentless. Every day brought a new scheme. Every single day. It started with the family photos. Nadine came home from work and found Anaya holding a school permission slip. "Mommy, I need a family picture." "Okay, with Dad."
Nadine closed her eyes. Deep breath. Count to 10. Open eyes. The child was still there. Baby, he is not your... Teacher said family. 10 minutes later, she found herself standing beside Min Wook, against her will, taking photographs. The photographer smiled. Closer? No. A little closer? No. Little more? No. The photographer looked confused. You two are married. We are not. Legally, Min Wook said it without looking at her. Nadine nearly threw a shoe. The picture ended up looking like two people being held hostage by a very small dictator. Anaya loved it. Then came phase 2, the fake emergency. At exactly 2:14 p.m., Nadine received a phone call. Panicked, urgent, concerning. Mom, come quick. Her heart nearly exploded. She raced home, burst through the apartment door, found Anaya sitting calmly at the table eating cookies. Nadine froze. What happened? Anaya pointed dramatically. Dad couldn't open the pickle jar. Silence. Pure silence. The kind of silence that gets people arrested. Across the kitchen, Min Wook sat with his arms folded, not saying a word, not helping, because apparently he had accepted his fate. Nadine looked at him. He looked at her. Neither survived the eye contact. The children high-fived when they thought nobody was looking. They were not subtle. Meanwhile, Mr. Chun was suffering. Now, Mr. Chun was Min Wook's right-hand man, 46 years old, former military, loyal, efficient, and deeply confused, because his mafia boss was changing, rapidly, concerningly. One day, Min Wook canceled a meeting, a very important meeting, a very expensive meeting, a meeting involving people who definitely owned too many weapons. Mr. Chun stared at the schedule, then stared at his boss. You canceled? Yes. Why? Min Wook adjusted his tie. Anaya has a dance recital. Silence. The room stopped functioning. One lieutenant dropped his water bottle. Mr. Chun sat down slowly, because standing suddenly felt dangerous. The boss continued. Move the meeting. Boss. Yes? Boss, you skipped a weapons negotiation for ballet? Min Wook didn't even look up. It's tap dance. As if that somehow explained everything. By that evening, rumors spread through the organization. Some believed Nadine had hypnotized him. Others believed Anaya was secretly controlling him. Honestly, the second theory had evidence. Comedy is fun. Laughter is wonderful. But eventually, every story reaches a moment where somebody's mask slips. And Nadine wasn't prepared for Min Wook's. It happened on a rainy night. The kids were asleep. The apartment was quiet. For once. A miracle. Nadine couldn't sleep, so she wandered downstairs and found Min Wook sitting alone. No bodyguards, no assistants, no expensive suits. Just him. Rain tapping against the windows. Whiskey untouched. Eyes distant. The kind of distant that comes from carrying too much for too long. Nadine sat beside him. Neither spoke for a while. Then she asked softly, "You okay?" Min Wook laughed. Not because it was funny, because it wasn't. No. That answer surprised her. People usually lied, especially strong people, especially men like him, but he didn't. For a long moment he stared at the rain, then finally spoke. My father built everything. Nadine listened. The businesses. Pause. The organization. Longer pause. The enemies. And suddenly she understood. This wasn't a man chasing power. This was a man trapped beneath it. My father spent his life building an empire. His voice was calm, too calm, the way people sound when they've repeated something painful too many times. When he died, he looked away. There was nobody else. The pieces clicked together. The fear, the responsibility, the loneliness, the exhaustion she sometimes caught behind his eyes. Everybody saw a king. Nobody saw the prison. Nadine spoke quietly. That sounds heavy. Min Wook laughed again, this time softer. It is. Silence settled between them. Comfortable silence. Dangerous silence, the kind where walls start coming down. Then Nadine told him about Kevin, the ex-husband, the divorce, the betrayal, the nights she cried after the kids fell asleep, the fear of starting over, the fear of failing. For the first time since they'd met, neither was joking, neither was hiding, neither was pretending. Just two exhausted adults admitting life had kicked them repeatedly. When she finished, Min Wook looked at her, really looked at her. Not the loud woman, not the fake wife, not the chaos machine. Her. And something changed, something neither of them could ignore anymore. His voice came out quiet. You deserve better. Nadine's breath caught. The rain continued outside, steady, gentle, and for one terrifying moment, it felt like he was about to say something else, something important, something life-changing. Instead, he looked away. Coward. Yes, I just called him a coward, because he was. He wasn't bold enough to capture what was supposed to be a beautiful moment. Nadine stood, smiled softly, and headed upstairs. Neither noticed Anaya peeking from behind the hallway corner. The child saw everything, everything, and immediately began planning phase 3. God help us all.
The most dangerous thing in the world isn't a gun, or a knife, or a mafia boss. It's routine. Because routine sneaks up on you. One day you're surviving, the next day you're attached. And that's exactly what happened. Without anybody noticing, the family happened. Movie nights became normal, dinner together became normal, weekend outings became normal, even arguments became normal, especially arguments. One afternoon, Nadine found Min Wook helping Adrian with homework. Helping. The feared mafia boss, the man criminals whispered about, was arguing with a 9-year-old over fractions. 3/4. No. It is 3/4. No. Min Wook blinked, slowly, dangerously. Adrian pointed at the worksheet. My teacher said, show your work. The boss of a criminal empire spent 20 minutes proving a fraction. Nadine nearly cried laughing. Then there was Anaya. Anaya had completely abandoned subtlety. One day she walked into the room, looked directly at Min Wook, and said, "Good night, Dad," without hesitation, without apology, without fear. Min Wook looked at the little girl. Anaya smiled, waiting, hopeful, vulnerable, the kind of look children only give people they trust completely. And for the first time, he didn't correct her. "Good night, Anaya." That's it, just that. But the little girl beamed like she won the lottery. Later that night, Mr. Chen found Min Wook standing on the balcony, looking thoughtful, dangerous, because thoughtful people make decisions. "What are you thinking about?" Min Wook didn't answer immediately, then finally said, "I'm tired." Mr. Chen nodded. He knew. Everyone knew. Years of responsibility had aged the man. Years of violence, years of pressure, years of pretending. Then Min Wook surprised him. "I think I want something different." Silence. Mr. Chen stared, because those words changed everything. Different. Not power, not money, not territory. Different. Family dinners, movie nights, children arguing over cartoons, Nadine laughing. Different. The realization terrified him, because for the first time, he had something to lose. And life has a nasty habit. The moment you're happy, it gets curious. The moment you relax, it starts plotting. Which brings us to Thursday, a completely normal Thursday, sunny, peaceful, safe. Nadine was helping Anaya color. Adrian was building something dangerous with Legos. Min Wook was actually smiling. Smiling. Write this date down. History was being made. Then the front gate buzzed. Nobody paid attention. Visitors weren't unusual. The security guard answered. His voice sounded strange, nervous, confused. Mr. Chen frowned, walked toward the monitor, looked at the screen, and froze. Uh-oh, that's never a good sign. Nadine noticed immediately. "What?" Mr. Chen didn't answer. He simply turned the monitor around. Nadine looked, and the color drained from her face. Instantly, gone, vanished, like somebody unplugged her soul. Because standing outside the gate, holding a suitcase, wearing the same stupid smile she used to love, was Kevin, her ex-husband, the man who left, the man who broke their family, the man who chose Crystal, and apparently the man who had just flown across the world. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The room held its breath. Kevin smiled at the camera, then said words that made everything worse. "I'd like to see my wife. Not ex-wife. Wife. Wife." Ladies and gentlemen, the devil had arrived.
Now, there are bad days. There are terrible days. And then there are days when your ex-husband appears at the front gate of your fake husband's luxury compound in South Korea. Those are special. Those require therapy. Nadine stared at the security monitor. Kevin smiled awkwardly into the camera, like he hadn't detonated a bomb inside her nervous system. The room was silent. Adrian looked confused. Anaya looked confused. Mr. Chen looked like he wanted legal immunity before whatever happened next. And Shin Min Wook? Y'all, the man didn't move, not even a little, but the room got colder. You know how some people get loud when they're angry? Min Wook got quieter, which was significantly more terrifying. Nadine finally found her voice. What is he doing here? Nobody knew. Unfortunately, they were about to find out. 20 minutes later, Kevin sat in the guest lounge, sweating profusely, because the situation wasn't matching the fantasy he'd built in his head. See, Kevin had expected something very different. He expected tears, regret, maybe a dramatic reunion. Instead, he was sitting inside what looked suspiciously like a villain headquarters, across from a Korean man who radiated enough intimidation to qualify as a natural disaster. 2 bodyguards stood nearby, not moving, not blinking, just existing aggressively. Kevin adjusted his collar. "I'm sure this looks strange." Nobody responded. The silence was beating him up. Nadine crossed her arms. "What are you doing here, Kevin?" Kevin smiled. That smile, the one she used to love, the one she now wanted to fight. Kevin said, "I came to fix things." Silence. Then Adrian laughed. The child thought it was a joke. Unfortunately, Kevin wasn't joking. The smile faded. "He made mistakes." "You think so?" "Because leaving your wife and children for Crystal from hot yoga wasn't exactly a minor clerical error." Kevin continued, "I was confused." "Confused? Sir, you packed luggage, bought plane tickets, signed paperwork. At no point did confusion stop you." Then came the worst sentence, the sentence that made everyone uncomfortable, even the furniture. "I want my family back." Anaya looked down. Adrian looked away. Nadine felt something twist painfully inside her chest, because that's the thing about old wounds. They heal, but sometimes the scar still remembers. For a second, just 1 second, nobody spoke. Then Kevin noticed Min Wook, the expensive watch, the tailored suit, the bodyguards, the confidence, the fact that everybody else seemed to orbit around him. Kevin shifted in his seat. "Who exactly are you?" There it was, the question, the moment. The room held its breath. Mr. Chen stopped blinking. One bodyguard suddenly became very interested in the ceiling. Nadine looked at Min Wook. Min Wook looked at Kevin. And then the man answered, calm, simple, effortless.
Her husband.
Silence. Absolute silence. Kevin laughed, because surely that was a joke. Right? Right? Nobody else laughed. His smile slowly died. Nadine nearly choked. Mr. Cheon looked away to hide his own smile. Kevin stared. "Excuse me?" "Legally." The room exploded, not physically, emotionally. Kevin looked like somebody had unplugged his brain. "Legally?" Nadine rubbed her forehead, because explaining this situation required diagrams, several diagrams, and possibly alcohol. Kevin looked between them, again, and again, and again, trying to process the information, trying and failing, because how exactly do you react after flying across the world to reclaim your ex-wife, only to discover she is legally married to Korean Batman? There isn't a handbook for that, trust me. Kevin swallowed. "You married him?" "It's complicated." "No," Mr. Cheon spoke for the first time. "It is extremely complicated." That didn't help, not even a little. Meanwhile, Anaya had reached her limit. The child slid off the couch, walked directly over to Min Wook, and climbed into his lap, without hesitation, without permission, without fear, like she'd done it 1,000 times. The room froze again. And y'all, the look on Kevin's face, that look deserves its own documentary. Because for the first time, he realized something. He hadn't just lost Nadine. He had lost moments, birthdays, bedtime stories, school plays, family movie nights, all the little things, the things that actually matter. And somebody else had been there. Somebody else had stepped into the empty space he left behind. Kevin's voice came out smaller. "When did all this happen?" Nobody answered immediately, because, honestly, nobody knew. Somewhere between the fake marriage, the school picnics, the movie nights, the emergency pickle jar incident, the family happened, slowly, quietly, without permission. Min Wook looked down at Anaya, then at Adrian, then finally at Nadine, and for the first time, the truth sat in the room where everyone could see it. This wasn't fake anymore, not really, not where it mattered. Kevin saw it too. The way Nadine looked at Min Wook, the way Min Wook looked back, the way the children naturally gravitated toward him, the comfort, the trust, the love, not spoken, but present, everywhere. Kevin leaned back slowly and suddenly looked older, not in years, in regret. Then he asked the question nobody wanted to answer. "Do you love him?" Silence. Nadine froze. Min Wook froze. Mr. Cheon mentally prepared for cardiac arrest. The bodyguards stopped breathing. Even Anaya looked interested. "Do you love him?" Such a simple question. Such a dangerous question. Nadine opened her mouth. Nothing came out, because the answer terrified her, and because for the first time, she wasn't sure it was no. Across the room, Minwook's jaw tightened because he wanted to hear her answer, which was a problem, a massive problem, a problem shaped exactly like feelings. Then Kevin stood, slowly, painfully. He looked around the room, at Nadine, at the children, at Minwook. Then he laughed, not because anything was funny, the kind of laugh people make when reality punches them in the face. So that's it? Nobody answered. Nadine frowned. He stood up, slowly, eyes locked on hers. I didn't fly 12 hours to give up. The room froze. Kevin pointed toward Minwook. You think I'm just going to walk away because she signed some paperwork? Minwook didn't move, didn't blink, didn't react, which somehow made it worse. Kevin took a step forward. She's still the mother of my children. Another step. And I'm still their father. Another step. And I want my family back. Yaw, the temperature in that room dropped so fast I almost needed a jacket. Nadine stared, because this wasn't the Kevin she remembered. The old Kevin avoided conflict. This Kevin had flown across the world and apparently left his common sense in America. Then came the bomb, the absolute bomb. Kevin reached into his bag, pulled out a folder, and dropped it onto the table. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Nadine slowly opened it, and the color disappeared from her face. Immediately, gone, like somebody unplugged her soul. Minwook noticed. Mr. Chun noticed. Everybody noticed. Kevin's voice came out quiet. I never signed the final divorce papers. I don't know much, but I know this. Nothing good has ever followed the phrase, I never signed the divorce papers. Nothing. Kevin looked directly at Minwook, then smiled, small, dangerous, confident. The question is, he paused, long enough to make everybody uncomfortable. Which one of us is actually her husband? And that's where we're stopping, because absolutely not. I'm not emotionally equipped to continue. If y'all want part 2, you already know what to do.